want to say this before the video properly starts. Spoiler warning, I am going to say the major plot points of this film, so if you don't want any spoilers for this, click off this video right now. Okay, you've been warned, so let's get on with the video. Alright, so Netflix made a live-action Death Note film, and I personally feel that it's comparable to The Mummy: Tomb of the Dragon Emperor, because that film was just an arsewipe of a film on the Mummy name, as this film is an arsewipe of a film on the Death Note name. Most of you probably know the Death Note plot, but I'll go over it again for those who don't or have forgotten it or whatever. So basically there's this high school kid called Light Turner. Fucking Turner. I wanna die. Yeah, so he gets given a book, and this book is the Death Note, and basically what it does is when he writes down a name and thinks of a face of the person in this Death Note, he has the power to kill them. And all this is explained to Light by a Shinigami, or Death God if you prefer, named Ryuk. Light goes about initially using his power to kill criminals, just because that's what he wants. He wants all criminals to die, and he would see the world without crime as a utopia, so to speak. And he does this going under the name Kira, which basically is Japanese for killer, or I think the film said it was like light in Russian or something. I don't really know. That line I just kind of went over my head, but there was some line about it. So a detective known only as L finds out about Kira, or Light if you prefer, and what he's doing. And he starts to try and figure out how Kira's doing it, because he's killing one person in Asia at 2:30 PM, and then by 3 PM he's killing someone in Europe. And L's like, hey, how is he doing this? How is the same person killing one person, half an hour difference from a 10-hour flight at best, you know? So L's trying to figure that out. And because L is extremely smart, he figures out that what Kira has to do is have a name and a face, and then that's how he can kill people, because basically all the names and faces of people he killed were released to the media. And Light's father works alongside L in the Kira case, which gives a perfect opportunity for L to monitor Light's every move to see if he is actually Kira. And Light ends up meeting Misa Amane, or Mia-san if you want to go by the movie. That's just because the movie has more westernized names, just because it was set in America, I think. And basically finds out she's also followed by a death god called Rem, I believe. If I'm wrong, my apologies. And so basically Light works with Misa, and she pretty much becomes a second Kira. So they do that in an attempt to confuse L, where Light's like, well look, you're monitoring my every move, and I'm not Kira yet, Kira's still working. How does this happen? Meanwhile, it's just Misa doing it in the background. And then L figures out that Misa might have something to do with it. So Light and Misa relinquish the ownership of their Death Notes to try and prove their innocence and detain themselves. So they're proving themselves innocent, like, hey, we're not Kira. And in this time, a third Kira appears, and you know, if you want to know the rest, just Google it. It confuses me from then on. As soon as the third Kira was introduced, I just got lost in the anime. I was like, what is going on? I'm so confused. But, you know, in the movie, there was never a third Kira mentioned, so you don't really need to worry about it if you're thinking just about the movie, so that makes it easier for you. So onto the movie itself. It starts off like literally any typical high school movie. And, you know, at this point I was like, oh dear god, this is just going to be an hour and 40 minutes of just a god-awful film. I saw the high school setting, I'm like, okay, I know that Light's a high school character, but dear god, because you've gone on something less typical for an American high school. Like, if you think of like a sarcastic movie which is trying to be like an overly American high school, that's what this looks like. So in an early scene, there's a storm happening and there's just rain falling down, and the Death Note falls to Light when he's just sat around doing other people's homework. Fucking nerd. So he then gets himself caught doing other people's homework and gets put in detention for this because, you know, plagiarism or something, I don't know. They didn't really explain it, like, you're doing other people's homework, detention. Oh yeah, by the way, he got punched. That was just a thing. Like, nothing more came of that. He was like, oh yeah, he got punched. They made a joke out of it. That was it. That was the whole plot line for that. In this detention, what happens is he first meets Ryuk. Light tries to convince himself that it's just all a weird dream and this is not real. And Ryuk, being a death god fucks with his head and gets him to kill a bully by writing his name in the death note and gets him decapitated by a ladder. A little bit after this, Light does possibly the stupidest thing he could have done, showing off that he has the power of a death god, because he shows a girl this book which can kill people. He shows a girl the death note literally just because he's got a crush on her. I mean, seemingly, there seems to be no other reason why he does this. I'm like, why? You're literally giving away probably the biggest secret that could get you put on death row because you fancy a girl. You're dumb, Light. You're dumb. And I'll come back to Light being dumb later. That's something written later in my script. Yeah, I actually have a script. This is off script now. I'm gonna stop. And so, you know, for a while, Light and Mia, which is the girl's name who showed the death note, they both all go like god complex style with each other and kill people because they want to, and you know. Basically, when Light was going crazy in the anime, he does that, but now with the girlfriend. That's like the whole plot point of like a few minutes of the film. Is just like, oh yeah, he's going all god complex and killing people if he wants. But now, different to the anime, he's got a girlfriend, so yeah. We're putting our own twist on this. No, you're not, Netflix, go away. And, you know, it confused me, because in this, if you watch the anime, you would know that Light is the one who's a bit insane, like, just going off wanting to kill people all the time in the anime. And Misa's kind of, like, a bit more, because Mia's meant to represent Misa, if you hadn't figured out by now. In the anime, Misa's a bit more concerned, a bit more held back. But Netflix decided to just switch those over, so now Light's the one who's a bit more concerned and held back, and Mia, or Misa, is the one who's a bit more crazy and just like wants to kill people all the time. Not quite sure why they did that. Light seems all naive when really his character's meant to be a really smart guy, because like throughout everything they always say, oh yeah, Light, he's a really smart guy, and then they make him really naive, which confused me. But who knows? I feel like them making him so dumb and so naive when he is always known to be just a smart person, just like even academically, it kind of just takes away from his character. It just kind of loses the effect that his character had of being really smart. It's like, oh yeah, this guy's really smart. It's like, well, he's extremely naive with this power that he has, and some random girl he's met is far better with the power, so how smart can he really be? I was so thankful for this. They kept L to be the same smart guy that he's always been. And I like the subtle touch there. This was a subtle touch that probably not many people noticed. But the actor who played L sat the same way that L sat in the anime, with a sort of crouch style. I thought that was a nice little subtle touch. I'm like, you know what? Paying respect to the original with a subtle touch. I'll respect that. I may not respect the whole film, but that I do respect. The start of the film, to me, more feels like a sort of teen romance movie rather than the psychological drama that it really is. I mean, I'm not that much of a fan of it, because if I wanted to see death and romance, I'd go watch The Fault in Our Stars, not Death Note. And it's surprisingly early in the film, in my opinion, that L confronts Light about the fact that he's Kira, and it's just like, I thought that would have come later and like been more towards the climax, but it was actually quite early in the film that happened, and I was like, okay, interesting. But one thing that was quite cool about that is when L approaches Light, they do it in a cafe, just how it did in the anime. A nice, another nice little subtle touch, which was just like paying respect to the anime, just with a little subtle touch that probably not many people noticed, but I did. So thank you, Netflix, for paying some good subtle touches to it. I appreciate it. So once L fully knows that Light is Kira, he wants to convince Light's father that he's Kira, and he doesn't, like, Light's father doesn't buy it and like ends up getting L in their headlock or something. I don't know. I think I was like tweeting during that scene about how I was feeling about it, so I don't really know. I got a bit confused there. There was one scene in this film that stood out to me more than anything as a massive plot hole, and this scene is when Light is chasing Mia around the school, shouting about the things that have happened with the Death Note. While there's people there, he's literally shouting about all the things that have happened while he's been using the Death Note, while there's people around, basically exposing himself as Kira to all the people that want to listen in this school. And there is no fucking way you're going to tell me that not one person heard everything and could have just tipped it off to the police and just got him sent onto death row just there and then. Just no one can tell me that that didn't happen, because there were so many people around and he was shouting it. After that, the movie's just kind of mostly what you'd expect until like the Ferris wheel scene. So I'm going to say this again, I'm going to repeat myself, but if you didn't listen to the spoiler alert at the start, then there's another spoiler comment here, because this is the major plot part of the whole movie. This is the major climax of the whole movie that I'm about to spoil. So if you don't want it spoiled and you want to watch the movie first, then click off right now. Apologies for my phone going off. Then click off this video right now, go watch it, and come back if you want, because this will just spoil the whole movie if you haven't seen it and want to. Alright, now I've got that major spoiler alert out of the way. So basically, by this point, Light and Mia have written each other's names in the Death Note because they're getting angry at each other. One of the rules of Death Note is one name can be burned. Well, one page can be burnt from the Death Note, and whoever that is doesn't die. But Light and Mia have written each other's names on different pages. So the only way that anything's going to happen is one of them's going to survive by the page being burned. So only one of them can live here. So it's either Light lives or Mia lives. One of the two. So this happens, and they've both written each other's names down for a very similar time. What Ryuk has to do, just because it's part of what he does as a death god, is he has to basically make the Ferris wheel fall apart with both of them at the top and both of them in imminent danger of death, which will happen to both of them unless their page is burned, but only one of them can be burned, so only one of them can survive this. In the most typical movie scene I've ever seen in my entire life, there's a slow motion scene hanging out of a Ferris wheel. Like, what thriller film that has a Ferris wheel scene doesn't have that happen in it? Like, there just isn't one. Okay, there's probably one, but it's a very typical scene. And I mean, we all knew that scene was coming. Like, as soon as we saw the Ferris wheel going around, like, we all knew a slow motion scene was coming. Like, the slow motion falling scene, it was gonna happen. It happened. Everyone knew it was coming. It was the most predictable thing I've probably ever seen. And yeah, they both end up falling from the top of the Ferris wheel. Mia falls into a pile of flowers to her imminent death, whereas Light falls into the ocean. But while Mia's falling, the Death Note falls out of the Ferris wheel. She pulls out Light's page and it lands in a barrel that's set on fire. So Light's page is burned, causing him to stay alive. And you know what, that sounds like a pretty intense scene. It sounds like it'd be really dramatic and really intense. But they just completely killed all intensity with the song they used, which sounded something straight out of the end, like the happy ending to an 80s romance movie. Like, had they used dramatic music, that would have been a really intense, really good scene. Whoever was doing the audio decided, you know what we need? We need an 80s love song. That's what we need. They didn't need that. They needed dramatic music, and like, if they had dramatic music in that scene, I would have fallen in love with that scene, because it is a great scene other than the music. So, I mean, after that, that's pretty much the majority of the film done. Then it's just kind of the dip down from the climax. So it's not, doesn't end on the climax, it kind of dips down a little bit after the climax and just has a few little things at the end. You know how it is with movies when it's like had an ending climax and then just kind of has the aftermath of it shown a little bit and then end of the movie. So that's basically it for the movie. But one thing I'm going to compare it to the anime again is there were a lot of characters missing. Like, where was Nier? Where was Mello? Where was the Yotsuba group? None of them were mentioned at all. I mean, unless I completely missed something, but I saw that none of them were mentioned at all. And they're all quite major parts in the anime. Admittedly, they came in after I got really confused about what was happening, but that's not the point. They were still major characters in the anime. Just to have zero mention in the film, which really confused me. Because I was like waiting for them to come. The ending climax happened, I was like, the movie's over. But where were they? I will never forgive Netflix for this. They missed out the most important scene in the entirety of Death Note. Like, this scene is literally the most important scene in the whole anime, and Netflix missed it out. It's the potato chip scene. You know the scene I'm talking about. The potato chip scene was missed out, and I'm not okay with that. Why, Netflix? It was the best scene, the most important scene, and you lost it. You didn't put it in there. Why, Netflix? But all in all, I don't actually hate it as much as I'm making it out to be. If I were to look at it as just a standalone film, and let's say it wasn't actually Light, if they hadn't used the main character as Light, if they'd used it as a post or prior owner of the Death Note, I'd have actually quite enjoyed it. And thought, okay, this isn't like Yagami or like Turner as they call him, which doesn't feel right. But if they'd used it as like a completely different character, completely new guy, I would have quite liked that. I would have thought, okay, this is a new person having the Death Note, so they're going to have a completely new way of going about it. I mean, I would have obviously struck up the similarities to how it would have been if they just kept the same plot, but I think they could have done better if they used a different character. By no means is this a great movie at all. Like, it's not. It doesn't rank highly in movies that I've seen, but it also doesn't rank extremely low. It ranks down there, but not too far down. I think it got better as it went on. I think it was a slope building up as how good it got, and then it hit that climax in the Ferris wheel scene, and that was the peak of the film. After that was just aftermath stuff, which I was never expecting to be hugely interesting. So with every film, once the major climax is done at the end and the aftermath is happening, I never expect that to be interesting. So when that's just kind of just talking about what's happened, then I don't really mind, just whatever. What I'm gonna say is, if you're a hardcore fan of the Death Note anime, avoid this film. Just do not watch it, because you will hate it. If you're a hardcore fan of the Death Note anime, you will despise this film, probably, at least. That's how I feel you would be. But if you aren't huge into it, and you kinda like the anime, you watched the whole way through and enjoyed it, but weren't huge into it, I'd say, if you got a couple hours to spare at some point and you got nothing better to do, give it a watch. And if you're one of the people who hasn't watched the anime before it, I'd say, watch the film first, actually. Then go back and watch the anime, and you'll see how much better the anime is than the film, and then you'll understand why so many Death Note fans hate on the film so much. I'd say, overall, I'll give it a 5.5 out of 10. Maybe a 6 out of 10 at stretch, but I think 5.5 out of 10 is probably a solid way to put it. But yeah, that's how I felt about the Netflix adaptation of the Death Note movie. Apologies if this video is extremely long, which I can already tell it's going to be, but I had a lot to say, and I quite enjoyed doing this of the sort of movie review thing. So if you want me to do more of these things, then just drop a comment, leave a like or whatever. So I really do hope you enjoyed. If you did, be sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're new, all that cool stuff, and I will see you in the next one. Alright guys, peace.